Okay, so since we are going to discuss about digital image classification, I assume that you are already aware of how the remote sensing sensor captures the data, what type of what is a digital image, and some general steps of processing of digital image. So all those things are clear to you. So if that is clear, then we can go ahead with the classification. Otherwise, I can just brief you about that. So Nazneen ji or any participant can tell me, because unless you understand what is a digital image, you will not be able to understand how this image gets classified. So do you know how what is a digital image, how the satellite captures the data? Huh?
And ma'am, please give a very brief, on this to all the participants.
Okay. Okay. So as you must be aware that there are satellites in the orbit revolving the Earth. In the satellites, sensors are placed. Okay. These sensors have charged coupled devices, CCD, charged coupled devices. And these sensors, they are operating in either one band or multiple bands. Now, what is a band? Band is a part of electromagnetic spectrum for which that particular sensor is sensitive to. Okay, so the sensors that have one single band are called as panchromatic sensors. The sensors which are having multiple bands, they are called as multispectral sensors. There are other sensors also which have some more than 100 bands. So such type of sensors are called as hyperspectral sensors. So you must have heard about these terms already. Okay. So this was about the passive remote sensing, in which we are utilizing the energy of sun, okay, and recording the reflected energy from that part of electromagnetic spectrum. Now, there are certain other type of sensors uh, or satellites which transmit their own energy. And these sensors or these satellites are called as active satellites, active remote sensing satellites. So microwave data is active active data, active remote sensing data. Now, active because they are sending their own source of energy. So what they do is they send the pulse, they send the beam, and that beam gets backscattered, reflected from the Earth's surface, and this backscattered energy is then recorded by the sensor. Okay, so why do we require the microwave data? Because in some environmental conditions, such as when there is a lot of cloud, so what happens? The optical data or optical electromagnetic spectrum, the sun's radiation is not able to penetrate these clouds. Microwave can penetrate these clouds and collect the information even though there is cloudy sky. Okay, so also with microwave you can get certain more information also. So this is microwave remote sensing. Then we also have thermal images in the thermal band of thermal range of electromagnetic spectrum, that sense the how much is the temperature for a certain part of the area, part of the ground. So this is about remote sensing. Now, when the when we receive the data, we see that this data is in digital format. Digital format. What is a digital image? You all must be aware of a digital image. When you zoom a digital image, you see square areas, and these square areas are called as pixels. Okay, so all of you must be aware of pixels in all our mobile phones, whatever camera is there. So how many pixels are there? So we know all this thing, but how this digital image looks like. Now, this digital, along with every pixel, a value is attached, and this value is called as digital number or pixel number, grayscale. There are synonym terms in the literature. Okay, now this value represents how much energy is received from this part of the ground. Okay, so if the object in that particular pixel is reflecting more energy, then the pixel value would be more. If the object is reflecting less energy, then the pixel value will be less. Okay, so based on this, the color of the image is decided. Color of the pixel is decided. Now, as we have already discussed, yeah, I know. I'm not moving the slides because at this moment I'm just telling you about brief about the background of the digital image. We have not yet started the digital image classification. That is why the slides are not moving. Okay. So, okay, coming back to digital image. Digital image, as I've already said, is made up of pixels, and these pixels, every pixel of value is attached to it, and that value is called as pixel value or digital number. This pixel value tells us how much is the energy reflected from this part of the ground. Okay, so now, as we have already said, that we can either have panchromatic data, single band data, or multiple band data, multispectral data. So suppose we have a multispectral band, the multispectral data. So we will have more than 2 bands. So let us say we have 6 bands or so in our data set. Okay. So all the 6 bands we cannot display in one go on our computer screen. And why is this limitation? Because in our computer screen or in our television screen, there are only 3 color guns, and these 3 color guns are red, green, and blue. Okay, so red, green, and blue color guns are there. So the one of the band we will display in using red color gun, one band we will display using green color gun, and the third band we will display using green color gun. So any 3 bands we can decide and we can display. So the darkest pixel in that band would be given black color. The brightest pixel would be given red, green, or blue color based on which color gun we are using. Okay, and because of this, we will get the pixels, the colored pixels on the computer screen, and this is called as a color composite. Okay, so this was a brief about what is a digital image. Now, when we, as we have already said, that digital image is composed of numbers only. And only numbers are there. So it is, we can say it is a matrix of numbers. So we can do manipulation of these numbers. So manipulating these numbers is known as digital image processing. There are various steps of digital image processing. It can be pre-processing, image enhancements, and the last stage is information extraction or digital image classification. So now, today in this session, we will be talking about digital image classification. Okay. So now, has the slide moved? Changed? Has the slide changed? Because now I have changed my slide. Someone can put a message whether.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. It has moved.
Okay. So now starting with the actual topic, that is digital image classification. Now, what is happening is that we have got the data set. Okay. Now, we want to get the information out of this data set. Now, the data has to be processed in some manner, or some kind of transformation of this data has to be carried out so that the information can be extracted from this data. The same data can be used by various different scientists or observers, and they can derive different type of information from it. From the same remote sensing data, if there is a suppose this agriculture scientist, he will look that data and he will find out what are the type of crops present, what are the different soil types in the area. Someone who is interested in water studies, he will try to find out how are the water bodies distributed in the area, what is the depth of water body. So all the parameters related to water body he will be interested in. So the same data can be transformed in various manners, and different type of information can be extracted out of it. So this process of getting the information out of the data is called as information extraction, and digital image classification is one method of information extraction from remote sensing data. Now, multispectral classification, because we are going to classify the multispectral images. Now, what are multispectral image? Multispectral means number of bands are more than one. Okay. So, now suppose we have 6 bands in our data. So, and we are talking about an 8-bit data. Okay, so in the first band, we will have pixel values ranging from 0 to 255. In the second band, again, we will have pixel values 0 to 255. Third band, again 0 to 255. Like this, in all the 6 bands, we will have pixel values ranging from 0 to 255. Okay. So you can imagine how many number of combination of brightness values we can have in our data set. So numerous combination of brightness values can be there. So we have to sort out these infinite number of categories into finite number of individual classes. Okay, and based on certain criteria, and this criteria would be decided by the observer, or by the analyst, or by the interpreter, by the person who's doing the interpretation. So let us define classification. Multispectral classification is the process of sorting out pixels into a finite number of individual classes or categories of data, and this is only based on one parameter, that is pixel value. Okay, we are not including any other criteria in this. When we are involving other criteria such as textures and other things we are incorporating, then we go on doing something else also. Okay. Now, if a pixel satisfies a certain set of criteria, the pixel is assigned to the class which corresponds to that particular criteria. Or in short, what we can say, that it is grouping of similar pixels and separation of dissimilar pixels. Once we have done the grouping, we have to assign the class labels. We have to assign the label that this particular group of pixels belong to water. This particular group of pixels belong to forest, and so on. And this entire process we do so that it results in manageable number of classes. Okay. So what we have seen is that from infinite categories, we are coming down to finite number of classes. Now, multispectral classification can be done using a variety of algorithms. We can either perform hard classification using supervised or unsupervised approaches. We can also do classification using fuzzy logic, or we can also apply hybrid approaches. Okay, so fuzzy logic or machine learning also nowadays. So today's discussion would be based only on hard classification, that is supervised or unsupervised approaches. Now, what is a hard classification? In a hard classification, as we have already discussed, that if a pixel is satisfies a certain criteria, it is put into a certain class. That means it is given a class label. So either the pixel will belong to a particular class or it will not belong to a particular class. So that means the answer for this question would be either yes or no. There will not be any fuzziness in between. Okay, we will not say that, oh, 40% chances are that the pixel falls in class A, 30% chances are that the pixel falls in class B, and 20% chances are that the pixel falls in class C. So such type of thing is not there in hard classification. In hard classification, the answer to the question whether the pixel belongs to class or not is either yes or no. Okay, whereas in fuzzy classification, we can assign membership to the classes. So membership means that what is the probability that pixel belongs to a particular class. Okay. Then we have other approaches, machine learning, higher level algorithms are also there. But today we will be discussing only supervised and unsupervised approaches using hard classification. Okay. Now, why should we go for digital image classification? What is the advantage of digital image classification? Because as we have already said that in the data set, we have numerous combination of pixel values. So that continuous variability of image data has to be converted into map patterns, because the analyst who wants the ultimate user of the data, he is not interested in data. He is interested in the map that you derive out of that data. Okay, so how to get the map out of that data? Also, we can use this digital multispectral classification to obtain the insight in the data with respect to ground cover and surface characteristics. We can also find out anomalous patterns in the image data set. Anomalous means which should not be there. Some anomaly is there. Okay. Now, it is a cost-efficient way of analyzing large data sets. Suppose you want to create a land cover map of entire Aligarh district. Okay, and you want to do it using visual image interpretation. So visual image means it becomes very difficult doing it using visual methods, because you have to mark the polygons for each and every class, do the interpretation manually, and also large number of image data sets would be there which cover the entire district. Okay. Also, if you engage more than one person, so the objectivity would not be there in the classification. One person has more interpretation skills, so he will interpret it in a different manner. The other person, his interpretation skills are not matching with the first person, so the level of interpretation and finally map making would be different. Okay, so that is why it becomes a lot of subjectivity comes when we are doing interpretation manually. Whereas this digital image classification, it is based on certain fixed rules. So it is more objective than the visual image interpretation. Secondly, that the results can be reproduced. Suppose you want to generate a map, submit it in district headquarters, you have to submit it to the member of parliament also, you have to give it to MLA also of that area. So you can reproduce it very efficiently, effectively. And it means it will be done in a very small time. Also, you can analyze the multi-band interrelationships. As I was discussing in the beginning of this session, was that we can display only 3 bands at a time, but when digital analysis, digital image processing, or let us say digital classification is done, it utilizes all the bands present in the data, and using all the bands, it does the classification. So the information available in all the bands is utilized. Okay, now before going into the details of image classification, let us talk about a few terms that we would be using in our session. The first term is dimensionality of the data. So this spectral dimensionality is determined by number of set of values being used in a process. So in image processing, each band of data is one set of value. So an image with 4 bands is said to be a 4-dimensional image. So if we are saying it is a 6-dimensional data, that means there are 6 bands in the data set that we are going to use. Another term is measurement vector. So the measurement vector of a pixel is set of data file values for 1 pixel in all the n bands. So if you look at the image, you can see I have identified the one single pixel in all the bands. Suppose the number of bands here are 3. So I have identified the same pixel in all the 3 bands. And if I write down the pixel value of this pixel in all the bands available, that would make the measurement vector of this particular pixel. Okay. So now for certain applications, we require or we use a group of pixels also. So in such cases, we may need certain statistical parameter which define a group of pixels. So we can use mean, standard deviation, variance, any of these parameters we can use. So if we take, suppose these are 7 pixels. So for any application, suppose we take a group of pixels. So for this group of pixels, if I take the mean in band 1, mean in band 2, mean in band 3, and so on, then we say that this is, and arrange them in form of a vector, then that would be called as a mean vector. Okay, so we will be using these terms later in our lecture. Now, another thing that I want you to be clear about is the image space and feature space. Now, what is image space? Image space is the image like we see, in which the pixels are arranged in form of rows and columns. So you are used to looking at image in this form, in which all the pixels are arranged in form of rows and columns. Okay. So in the digital classification, this image space has to be transformed into a feature space. Now, what is a feature space? Feature space is simply a graph of data file values or pixel values of one band against the value of another band. So suppose I'm taking a 2-band data set here, and I have 3 pixels, pixel A, pixel B, and pixel C. Okay. So pixel A has a value of 34 and 25 in band 1 and band 2. Pixel B has a value of 34 and 24. Pixel C has a value of 11 and 17. 77. So now when we plot them on x-axis, we will take pixel A, band 1, and on y-axis, we will take band 2. Okay, so when we plot these pixel A, B, and C on this graph, we will observe that pixel A and pixel B are falling close to each other, whereas pixel C is plotted at an entirely different uh, position. And this is because the pixel C is having completely different values from the pixel A and B. Even though pixel A and B, they might be falling on different part of the image. Pixel A is in one corner of the image, pixel B is in another corner of the image. But because their spectral properties are same, that is why pixel A and pixel B are plotted at same location in the, or the close location in the feature space. Okay. Now, how this helps us in doing the classification? Suppose pixel A, pixel B both are representing water, are both the water features. Okay. Now, what we can do is we can draw we can see that pixel A and pixel B are close to each other in the spectral space. So they form a cluster, they form a class, and we can name both of them as water. So like this, when we do this for all the pixels, then the entire image gets classified. Okay, so this is what is feature space. Okay, so please don't confuse feature space. I can show only n-dimensional feature space here, but you can have, I can show only 3-dimensional feature space here, but we can have any number of dimensions. Mathematically, we can have n-dimensional feature space. All these dimensions, all these axis would be at 90 degrees to each other, and in this n-dimensional feature space, the pixels are plotted and the pixels are classified in this n-dimensional feature space. Now, how to see whether the pixels are close or not close? So there should be some parameter by which we measure the distance of the pixels in the spectral space. So that is Euclidean spectral distance. Euclidean spectral distance, it is distance in n-dimensional spectral space. It is a number that allows two measurement vectors to be compared for similarity. The spectral distance between two pixels can be calculated using the simple Euclidean distance formula, which is d is equal to square root of summation from I is equal to 1 to n di minus ei whole square. Now, I stands for band number. D and E are two different pixels. So pixel value of 2 pixels in a particular band, take the difference, square it, and go on summing, doing a summation for all the bands. Then you can take out the square root of that value and you will get the spectral distance. Closer is the spectral distance, Similar are the pixels, larger is the spectral distance, different are the pixels. As you can see here, when we have given the spectral Euclidean distance as 5, so only the similar type of pixels have been taken here. Okay, so any pixel which is slightly darker in shade also has been excluded. When we have increased the spectral distance to 15, you can see those dark red images, dark red pixels are also included in this. Okay, so if you want to have very pure classes, you can take the spectral distance and less spectral distance, whereas if you want a generalized class, you can go for more spectral distance. Now coming to two different type of classification, which are the supervised classification and unsupervised classification. In supervised classification, the identity and location of some land cover types such as urban, agriculture, or let us say the identity of some classes is known a priori through a combination of fieldwork and experience. So we know at some location, suppose I want to have 10 classes in my classified data. So I should know at least few areas in which these 10 classes are present. So I should know some pixels which are truly representing the water class, some pixels which are truly representing urban class, some pixels which are truly representing agriculture, and so on, whatever are the classes which I want to classify. Now, the analyst attempts to locate specific sites in the remote sensing data that represents homogeneous examples of these known classes, and these pixels which we already know that they belong to particular classes are known as training sites. We provide some training to the computer. That is why this type of classification is called as supervised classification, because we are supervising the computer. Okay. Now, multivariate statistical parameters are calculated for these training sites. Now, multivariate statistical parameters such as the mean, standard deviation, variance, covariance matrix, all these are calculated. Then every pixel, both inside and outside the training site, is evaluated and classified and assigned to the class which has maximum likelihood of it being a minimum. Okay, then based on certain criteria, every pixel is evaluated whether the pixel belongs to training site 1, training site 2, 3, or so on. Okay. In supervised classification, you rely on your own pattern recognition skills and a priori knowledge of the data, and the system determines these statistical criteria for data classification. Now, the training sites that are provided to the computer should be good enough so that the proper classification is done. Okay. You can see here this was the remote sensing data. On that data, we wanted a land use classification to be done. So 6 particular classes were identified that they are present in the area. So we had to find out training pixels for all these 6 6 classes. So we have identified some pixels pertaining to agriculture, given here in yellow color. pertaining to dense forest in dark green color, open forest in light green color, dry river bed and water. So something like this, and even urban area is there in red color. So we have identified some sample pixels for all these 6 classes. So for these sample pixels, the statistical parameters such as mean in band 1, band 2, band 3, standard deviation in band 1, band 2, band 3, they are calculated. And based on these parameters, every pixel is checked whether it is inside, whether it will be classified as agriculture, forest, or urban, or so. Okay, so this is how the results of classification looks like, supervised classification. Okay, so in the first image, the supervised classification was done using Landsat data, and in the second, it was done using Sentinel-2 dataset. Again, remote sensing classification here. These are different types of classification methods. You can see the remote sensing image and its classification. Now, the other type of classification is unsupervised classification. In unsupervised classification, the identity of land cover types to be specified as classes within a scene are generally not known a priori because of any problem. We don't know about the training sites. So the computer is required to group pixels with similar spectral characteristics into unique clusters according to some statistically determined criteria. And the analyst then combines and relabels the spectral clusters into information classes. Okay, so you can see here, this is the original image, and the spectral classes were generated using certain algorithm, and finally the class name were incorporated to these spectral classes, and you get a classified map. So this is supervised classification. This is unsupervised classification. After supervised classification, you get the information classes. After unsupervised classification, you get clusters which should be merged or splitted and given the name. Okay, so now coming to training sample and how should we select the training sites, what should be the criteria, how many pixels should be there, so all those details. Training sites or training samples are sets of pixels that represent a potential class. The system calculates the statistics from sample pixels to create the parametric signature for the class. Now, we should always collect training samples from a homogeneous environment. That means if we are collecting it for water, then they should represent pure water. It should not happen that along with water, some pixels are for the soil also. Okay. Now, how many pixels should be there? So suppose I'm going to use 10 bands for classification, then the training sites should have more than 10 into n number of pixels, where n is the number of bands that we are going to use. Okay, we can collect the training sites using a vector layer. We can define a polygon in the image, or we can use thematic raster layer, which was already classified, to take the training samples. Now, to evaluate the signatures, whether the signatures are good enough or not. So the signatures should be well separable. Well separable means that at least in any one of the band combination, the signatures should not overlap each other. Okay, so once you find that the signatures are well separable, then only you can move ahead for classification. So there are certain parameters by which you can find out the separability between the signatures. So that is called as signature separability. Signature separability is a statistical measure of distance between two signatures. So you can calculate Euclidean distance, you can calculate divergence, the transform divergence, and JM distance between the signatures. And for every distance, the threshold values are given, that less than that threshold value, the signatures are not separable. More than that, the threshold values, the signatures would be separable. So you can refer to any book for these equations. We will not delve into these equations. Now, once your signatures are properly marked and you are satisfied with your signatures, then you can go for selection of the appropriate algorithm. Okay, so there are various supervised classification algorithms which can be used to do the classification of the classes of the digital images. Now, which classification algorithm we are going to use depends on the nature of input data and the nature of or the output which we require. There are basically two types of algorithms. One are parametric algorithms, the other one are non-parametric algorithms. So parametric classification algorithms assume that the observed measurement vector obtained for each class during the training phase are having a normal distribution. So the training sites have a normal distribution, then only you can go for parametric classification. Otherwise, you can go for non-parametric classification. Okay. So there are various classification algorithms. So one by one, we will look at these algorithms. So how to select which algorithm we should use. Okay. So first of all, this is just a simple rule. You can use it or you can select any algorithm. Okay, so basically we have these maximum likelihood, minimum distance, Mahalanobis distance, parallelepiped, and a simple binary input. Okay, so now first of all, how many classes are there? Whether there are two classes or more than two classes. So if there are only two classes, you should go for binary encoding. Okay. If there are more than two classes that you want to classify, you can go for some other classification. So some other thing you should see. So if more number of classes are there, then you can see whether the sample values overlap or not. Okay, so these are you can see in the figure, only the blue and brown pixels are not overlapping. So if they are not overlapping, you can directly go for the most simplest classification algorithm, that is parallelepiped. If the values are overlapping in these three cases, then again we should see what is the shape of the point cloud. Okay, whether the shape is simple or whether the shape is complex. So if the shape is complex, complex, then we can go for Mahalanobis decision rule. Okay, so you can see the blue and purple and yellow combination is having a complex shape. How have we decided that it is a complex shape? Because somewhere the purple thing, you follow one dots. So somewhere the purple dots are going out inside the yellow. Somewhere they are coming out. Somewhere yellow is going inside, outside. It is a very complicated thing. So you can, it is quite complex shape that we are observing. Whereas in red and blue, you can see it is simpler shape is there. Okay, so when the shape is complex, you can go for Mahalanobis decision rule. If this shape is simple, then again you can see whether there is a correlation between the brightness values or not. So as you must be knowing that if we are observing a ellipsoidal pattern, then we say that there is correlation. So in such cases, you go for Mahalanobis, maximum likelihood classification algorithm, and otherwise you go for minimum distance to means algorithm. Now we have seen when we should take which algorithm, but now let us see how these algorithms work. Okay, so let us start with parallelized classification algorithm. So in a parallelized decision rule, the data file values of the candidate pixels are compared to upper and lower limits. These limits can be either the minimum and maximum data file value of each band in the signature, or the mean of each band plus minus a standard deviation, or any limit that you specify. So there are high and low limit for every band for every signature. So when the pixels data file values are within this range, the pixel is classified into this class. If not, the pixel is not classified into this class. Okay, so this is parallelized decision. So graphically, if we want to show, so you can see here, there are these three classes, class 1, class 2, class 3. So we have taken the mean of class 1 and lower and higher limit of class 1 in both band 1 and band 2. You please follow the red lines. Okay, so in band 1, we have taken the lower and higher values. In band 2 also, we have taken lower and higher values. So they will intersect and they will form a parallelepiped. Here you can see only a rectangle, but when the number of bands is more, then a parallelepiped is formed. So this parallelepiped, if the pixel is falling in this parallelepiped, we say that the pixel is classified into this category. If not, then the pixel is not classified in this class. Okay. Like this, you can have lower and upper values for all the classes in all the bands. So here you can see we have taken 5 classes: class 1, class 2, class 3, class 4, and class 5. We have created the parallelepipeds for class 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and now we have to check whether pixel small a and small b would fall in which particular classes. So you can see pixel small a is falling inside the parallelepiped of class 4. So pixel A would be classified as class 4, that is forest. Whereas pixel B, since it is not falling in any of the parallelepiped, this pixel will be left as unclassified pixel. Okay. So this was parallelepiped decision. Now what happens when these parallelepipeds overlap? So in cases where a pixel may fall in the overlap region, of 2 or more parallelopipes, we have to decide in which manner the parallelepiped has to be classified. So it can be based on this order in which you have collected your signatures, or it can be defined by any other parametric rule, or what you can do is you can leave such type of pixels also as unclassified pixels. Okay, so anything we can do. Now, the advantages of such type of parallelepiped classification is that it is a very simple. We can understand it very easily. It is easy to implement, easy to understand, but and it gives a broad classification, and it is not dependent on the normal distribution of pixels. Okay. The disadvantage is that the parallelepiped has the corners, so the pixels which are not so close also gets classified as these particular classes. Okay. So you can see we have taken the signatures, and these, when we have plotted these signatures, all these signatures are plotted at different locations. That means they are not overlapping. So we can apply parallelepiped decision rule on such type of data set. Okay. Now coming to the next, that is minimum distance to means classification algorithm. Now the name itself is suggesting that minimum distance to means. So we have to calculate the distance of all the pixels with all the means, whichever distance is minimum, the pixel would be classified into that particular class. Okay. So this is also quite simple. As you can see, it requires mean vectors of all for each class in each band. Euclidean distance of pixel is calculated with all the means, and whichever the distance is minimum, the pixel is classified into that particular class. Okay. So for the same example that we have taken previously, now if we take the pixel small a and pixel small b, so pixel small a is having minimum distance with the mean of class class 4. So pixel a would be categorized classified as class 4. Here also, but pixel B, which was left as unclassified pixel when we were using parallelepiped algorithm, this gets classified as class C, class 3 here. Okay. When we are using minimum distance to means classification A. Now, advantage is that since every pixel is spectrally closer to any one of the class, so all the pixels will get classified. There will not be any unclassified pixel. Okay, so no unclassified pixel would be there. All the pixels would be classified. But this is a disadvantage also. The pixels which should not be classified also gets classified. So they should not have been classified, but they also gets classified. So now when we have taken the signatures for this particular class, for this particular image, you can see the 3 point clouds of the sample value, they are intersecting, and these point clouds are having simple shape. When the simple shape was there, so we can use minimum distance to means classification algorithm. Okay, so this is when we are using minimum distance to means classification algorithm. The third one is Mahalanobis decision rule. Mahalanobis, as you must have seen in case of minimum distance to means algorithm, we are only using the mean of the class. We are maybe a mean of the training site. We are not using the standard deviation. Okay, so because of which the variability of class is not accounted, is not taken care of. So to correct for that, the Mahalanobis decision rule is similar to minimum distance, except that the covariance matrix is used in the equation. The variance covariance are figured in so that clusters that are highly varied lead to similarly varied classes. Okay, so that is why we are using here the variance. So this is the formula, or this is the equation for Mahalanobis decision. The advantage is that it takes into account the class variability also, which was not done in minimum distance to means algorithm. Okay, it may be more useful than minimum distance in cases where statistical criteria must be taken into account. So the disadvantage is that since it is using covariance matrix, multiplying with the covariance matrix, so all the classes which are having larger values in covariance matrix, they get over classified. They tend to get over classified. Okay, and since the equation is robust, so it takes a lot. It takes more time for calculation than the parallelepiped or minimum distance to means algorithm. Mahalanobis decision rule is parametric in nature. Parametric means that it relies heavily on the normal distribution of the data in each input band. So if the data is not normally distributed, the results will not be as we had planned. So here you can see we have taken the training sites and the very complex. When we have plotted these training sites, we observe that it is a very complex shape, okay, for this particular blue one. So blue one is engulfing the red and the green one. So because this shape was very complex, so we can use the Mahalanobis distance class rule. Next one is this maximum likelihood and Bayes classifier. So maximum likelihood decision rule is based on the probability that a pixel belongs to a particular class. The basic equation assumes that the probability for all the classes, all the categories is same, and that the input bands have normal distribution. So if we know that the bands are not normally distributed, and if the weights are not, if the probability is not equal for all the category, then we can use some weight factor for particular classes, and then it becomes as Bayes decision. So this is the equation for maximum likelihood or Bayes decision rule. This is quite an extensive equation which involves the weight factor, as well as the measurement vector of the pixel, the mean vector, the probability of a pixel to be assigned into a particular class, the variance of the covariance matrix, the determinant of the covariance matrix, inverse of the covariance matrix, and all means the matrix functions are applied, transpose, inverse, and a lot of calculations are done, and the pixel is categorized or is classified. So maximum likelihood classifiers assume that the feature vectors of each class are distributed according to multivariate normal probability density function. The training samples are used to estimate the parameters of this distribution. The boundary between the different partitions in the feature space are placed where the decision changes from one class to another, and these are called as decision boundaries. You can see here we have taken the 4 classes, taken the training site. When we have seen that the training sites are having a prolonged, they are looking like that they are correlated with each other. So we have used maximum likelihood classifier. Okay. When we apply maximum likelihood classifier, we get results something like this. Maximum likelihood classifier is one of the best classifier used in for supervised classification, hard classification, because it utilizes most of the statistical parameters. Okay, as you must have seen in the algorithm, in the equation, so many statistical parameters were used. That is why it is considered very accurate. The advantage is that it is one of the most accurate of classifiers because it takes the most variables into account. It takes the class variability into account. The disadvantage is that it is an extensive equation and takes a lot of time for calculation. The maximum likelihood is parametric. That means it is dependent on the normal distribution of the signatures. It tends to overclassify the classes which have higher values in covariance matrix. So this is when we are classifying the same data using parallel, maximum likelihood, minimum distance to means algorithm, and so. So this is again classification using various algorithms. This is minimum distance, maximum likelihood, and Mahalanobis distance rule. Now coming to unsupervised classification. Unsupervised classification requires only a minimum amount of initial input from the user. The numerical operations are performed such that search for natural grouping of spectral properties of the pixel. The user allows computer to select class means and covariance matrix to be used in the classification. Once the data is classified, the analyst attempts a posteriori to assign these natural or spectral classes into the classes of interest, information classes of interest. So some of these clusters would be meaningless because they represent mixed classes. Now these clustering algorithms vary according to efficiency with which clustering takes place. Two common clustering algorithms are chain method and ISO data clustering. So starting with chain method. Chain method operates in a 2-pass mode. That means it passes through the registered multispectral data twice. In the first pass, the program reads through the data set and sequentially builds the clusters. In the a mean vector is associated with these clusters. In the second pass, a minimum distance to means algorithm is applied on whole data set on pixel on each pixel, whereby each pixel is assigned to one of the mean vectors created in pass 1. The first pass automatically creates the cluster signatures to be used in supervised classification. So starting with the pass 1, in pass 1, the analyst is required to supply these 4 information, and this 4 information is first of all capital R, that is the radius distance in spectral space used to determine when a new cluster would be formed. Capital C, which is the spectral space distance parameter used when merging clusters when n is reached. Capital N, the number of pixels to be evaluated between each major merging of the clusters, and C maximum is the maximum number of clusters to be identified. And in pass 2, the pixels are assigned into one of the Cmax clusters using minimum distance to means algorithm. So here we have taken an arbitrary data which is having only 3 pixels, pixel 1, pixel 2 and pixel 3. So pixel 1 has a value of 1010, pixel 2 has a value of 2020 and pixel 3 has a value of 30 and 20. So when the algorithm starts, the Cmax is 0. We have not created any pixel. So what it will do is it will create first cluster using pixel 1. So now pixel 1, cluster 1 has only one pixel, that is pixel number 1. And the mean of this cluster is also 1010 because it has only one cluster, one pixel. Okay, then the second pixel is evaluated. When second pixel is evaluated, it will check whether the second pixel has to go to cluster 1 or it will form a new cluster of its own. So it will check with, it will calculate the distance between this pixel and the mean of cluster 1. So mean of cluster 1 at this moment is at 1010. So it will find out the distance. Distance is coming to be 14.14. This distance is less than the capital R distance which we have specified, that is 15. So the pixel will merge into the existing cluster. Okay. Then the pixel will, then it will go to the second, the third pixel. Third pixel would again be checked whether it will be merged with the pixel, with the existing cluster, or it will form a new cluster. So it is checked that it is calculated that the distance here is coming to be more than 15. It is coming as 15.81. So by rule, it should form a new cluster of its own. So pixel 3 forms a new cluster. Like this, the clustering goes on, and more pixels are evaluated, and they are merged with the existing clusters. In between, the clusters are also checked whether these clusters are close to each other. They should be merged or they should be separated. Okay. So this is how the clusters are created in pass 1. In pass 2, each and every pixel is checked with the mean of these clusters using a minimum distance to means classification. The next clustering algorithm is ISO-data clustering. ISO-data stands for Iterative Self-Organizing Data Analysis Technique. So it has a comprehensive set of procedures which are incorporated in an iterative algorithm. ISO-data algorithm is a modification of k-means clustering, and it has the rules for merging and splitting of clusters also. ISO-data is iterative because it makes a large number of passes through the data set instead of just 2 passes, which we have seen in case of chain method. ISO-data algorithm does not allocate its mean based on analysis of pixels. Rather than that, an arbitrary assignment of cluster means is given, and arbitrarily they are assigned, and these cluster means are refined in the one by one in the as the iterations move on. So these are the set of parameters that are required. Cmax, capital T is maximum percentage of pixel whose class values should not be changed between last but one iteration. Capital M is maximum number of times the ISO-data has to do the classification and recalculate the cluster means. We also have to specify minimum members in a cluster, maximum standard deviation for a cluster, split separation value, and minimum distance between the clusters. So all these parameters have to be fed, and initially the spectral space is arbitrarily divided into the Cmax number of clusters, and the arbitrary assignment of mean is also given. Then each and every pixel is checked whether it should go to which particular category, which particular cluster. Then now the new pixels have been added into the clusters, so their mean also gets shifted. So in the second iteration, again the same thing is done using minimum distance to means algorithm, and like this the means go on shifting, and unless the number of iterations are over or more than m number of pixels do not change their algorithm, their class values between 2 iterations. In such case, the iterations will be stopped. Okay. So you can increase the number of classes. You can see this was ISO data when we have used 10 classes, when we have used 20 classes. ISO data for near infrared bands, and ISO data used for SWIR bands. This is again different type of algorithms used for classification, for unsupervised classification.